Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today we are going to reflect on Saturn's movement into the sign of Pisces through its retrograde. Saturn is back in Pisces one last time to stay for a number of months before finally entering Aries, where it will stay. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to reflect once more on the meaning of Saturn in Pisces. I'm going to give you some tips for tracking Saturn in Pisces, as well as the timeline that Saturn in Pisces has already given us. We're going to kind of look back on where Saturn has been the past couple of years and kind of just review the timeline a little bit, give you some things to watch for, tips for tracking it going forward. I'm going to do some reminders of the topics of the houses that will be reactivated by Saturn's retrograde into Pisces. This is, of course, coming right off from the lunar eclipse that we had in Pisces just yesterday on Sunday. So I think it's a really good time to do a little extra reflecting on the sign of Pisces in general, but also specifically Saturn in Pisces alongside of the eclipse. So that's what we'll do today, and I hope that this will be useful. I have a few other things planned this week for us. I'll tell you about those, give you a little bit of an overview for the week as well, tell you what's on my altar today, and we'll do some basic angular rising sign horoscopes for the double-bodied or mutable signs as well. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections if you have them. Really helps our channel grow. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Honestly, YouTube's algorithm changed over the summer, and I mean, we're not doing anything different than we always have, but it certainly helps at this point. I think there's something called hype. Obviously there's the like, there's the subscribe, whatever all the new things are. It helps us a lot if you click and share us and all that good stuff. So anyway, you can find transcripts of all these daily talks on my website, nightlightastrology.com. See if we can get to 100,000 subscribers by next summer. When you go over to the website, a couple of promotions. One is running until early October, the early bird rate for our retreat. Check out the immersive retreat, The Oracle Within. There is an informational video tagged on to the end of today's content telling you all about the retreat. We are over halfway full, moving up to about 3/4 of the way full for our retreat. Early bird rate is until October. So you have a couple more weeks left to save when you register. This is next June of 2026. So stick around for that. Go to the events page, click on live talks. You'll see that in the next couple months, my monthly webinars are listed. You can register for those. You get the recording if you can't attend live. This month, I am talking about all of the planetary pairings of Mercury. So how does Mercury act and behave on an archetypal and philosophical level when you combine it with Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, all of the planets? Learning planetary pairings is really essential for understanding them in your own chart or reading for others. So I hope to see some of you there. And again, you get the recording if you can't attend the live webinar. And then finally, go to the courses page. Our first year class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins on November 8th. Again, this is our fall enrollment period for our year one program. You're going to see me start to advertise this probably next week. There'll be an informational video tagged on to the end of each piece of daily content. You guys are familiar with that format, so you can learn more about it. And yeah, this is a brand new cohort starting in November for our first year program. I'll be telling you more about that soon. Registration is open and the early bird rate is in effect. That early bird rate also lasts until October at some point. So sign up early to save. Anyway, more on that next week. So that is it for promotions for the day. Let's turn our attention to the real-time clock. Take a look at Saturn. So here you can see Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, and today the moon also in Pisces, coming right off from the lunar eclipse that took place yesterday, September 7th, Sunday. So you can see this morning, this is about noon Central Time, that the moon is conjoining Saturn in Pisces. So it's a good day for us to still be reflecting on the sign of Pisces. And last week we were focused on other things, so we didn't mention Saturn's re-entrance into Pisces. I like to give outer planets a minute to kind of walk in the door before we talk about them. They're a little weightier, a little slower in my experience to really get going when they change signs. So anyway, yesterday, if we back up just a day, you'll see that we had a lunar eclipse. This is the full moon with the north node opposite the sun. So that's the lunar eclipse in Pisces that just came through. So a lot of emphasis on the sign of Pisces. If you look and you see that Neptune is right next door in Aries, if we move this forward just a little bit, Neptune will come back into the sign of Pisces right around October 22nd. Then we have Saturn and Neptune together in Pisces again. Saturn and Neptune traveling together is important because they will form a conjunction in the early part of 2026, back in the sign of Aries. But you can see here, Neptune doesn't enter Aries until January 26th. And then Saturn isn't going to enter the sign of Aries until a little bit after that. This is around February 14th. And then the two planets come together pretty quickly. You're going to see them come together by February 20th. Anyway, I'll review the timeline in total here. But what I wanted to start with was just the very basic fact that Saturn is now back in Pisces. Today, the moon is still in Pisces, coming off a lunar eclipse in Pisces with the north node. So it's a good day to be thinking about Saturn spending a little bit more time in Pisces before leaving for Aries entirely. Anyway, what I want to do, kind of like order of operations today, is first and foremost, I want to go back through the Saturn and Pisces timeline and review and refresh on that timeline. And then what I would like to do is remind you, just very briefly, not like full horoscopes, but a reminder of the house topics that Saturn is activating for each rising sign by virtue of the whole sign house it's now returned to in the sign of Pisces. And then I'm going to give you 5 things to watch for that are really applicable for Saturn and Pisces in general, but you could then apply that with some thought to the topics of the house that's being reactivated. I'm also going to give you some tips for tracking in terms of the overall timeline. We'll map that out as well. So, all right. Given that that is our agenda, let's start with tracking Saturn and Pisces. So first of all, what I want to do is I'm going to isolate everything from our view right now, except for Saturn. We're going to take Saturn out entirely. And what I'm going to do first is take you backward in time through the total progression of Saturn and Pisces. So let's go all the way back to Saturn's entrance. Whoops, went too far. Here we go. So Saturn first entered the sign of Pisces, and I would highly recommend writing some of these down. I don't have banners with all the dates out. I think that would be a little tedious, but here we go. So Saturn enters Pisces in March of 2023. So we're thinking about the Saturn in Pisces era of our lives on an archetypal and symbolic level as beginning in March or the spring, broadly speaking, of 2023. That progression then is going to move in forward movements and retrogrades all the way up until the present. So Saturn turns its first retrograde. This is right about June of 2023. So, from March until, actually, let's see here. Whoops. Yeah. So it's about mid-June of 2023. So from March to June, we have direct motion. And then June of 2023, the retrograde begins. The retrograde is going to take us all the way down to 0 Pisces. And that retrograde is going to end and direct motion resume by early November of 2023. Now, I don't think the direct and retrogrades are so important for you to track as much as the overall period of time. So March of 2023, it gets started. Really, that's all you need to know in a very basic sense. Saturn's going to keep going through them. Now, it's kind of in that middle decan of Pisces in direct motion from the fall of 23 all the way till June of 24. The retrograde then resumes. And from the summer of 24 all the way until, here we are, right about November of 24, we have the retrogradation. Now direct motion resumes. Now that forward movement is going to carry Saturn into Aries in late May of 2025. That's this year. About May 25th, Saturn entered Aries. So broadly speaking, actually, I'll create a little banner for you guys. Let's just say March 2023 to May 2025, Saturn in Pisces. So this is the first period that you could track and look back on, and it would be very meaningful right now to reflect on this era. in relation to the symbolism that we will explore today, or kind of review, I guess. Now, Saturn in Aries, the exploration of this new chapter of Saturn, Saturn, a new sign in a new house, gets going in late May. The retrogradation begins by, mid to late July. And now that retrogradation carries Saturn back into Pisces from September of 2025. And let's take it all the way back. It goes down to about the 25th degree by late November, turns direct. And then it's going to go in direct motion back into Aries right here. This is about February 13th to 14th. So then let's say the second period is September 2025 to February 2026. And I'll just make another little banner here for you. So September 25 to February 26, Saturn in Pisces. What's about 6 months. So this is the chapter that we're in currently. But if you look at that collectively, you could look at the period between March to 23 to May of 25, and then September of 25 to February of 26, all as a period of time in which the Saturn and Pisces themes are active and present. So that's the timeline. Now, as we're sitting here in September, it may be therefore very useful to reflect not only upon the previous period of Saturn in Pisces, the 2023 to 2025 period, but also the house topics that were being activated. So what I want to do is just move from tracking Saturn in Pisces in terms of the timeline to some brief house reminders. So what, to me, these are not horoscopes. These are just literally meant to be, whoops. Let's get back to the current moment. Here we go. Sorry. So to me, these are just meant to be little refreshers. So I'm just going to roll through all 12 signs and give you the brief topical reminders of where Saturn has been. And it would be good to think about these topics in relation to that 23 to 25 timeline in order to reflect upon what's coming up between now and February. So if you're an Aries rising, or if you listen to your Aries horoscope, whatever, sun, moon, rising, whatever, but for Aries rising, the Saturn placement has been in Pisces in your 12th house, a place that is a kind of blind spot, an unconscious domain, and a place that is about surrendering control. And often it's a place of the dissolution of ego. So a real kind of unconscious spot that often facilitates spiritual growth, but through things we have to surrender or let go of. For Tauruses, we're talking about the 11th house, a place of groups, friends, communities, allies, maybe things to do with the broader communities that you find yourself in, and also aspirations, long-term dreams, hopes, wishes for the future, all associated with the 11th house. For Geminis, it's the career house, the public-facing portion of the chart, the place that connects you to the greater society in which you live, and maybe something about vocation or interaction with the public. For Cancers, it's the 9th house, the place of religion, spirituality, learning, philosophy, long distance journeys or travels abroad, and maybe some connection to religion, or again, something more spiritual or philosophical. For Leos, we're talking about the 8th house, a place of soul contracts, the exploration of the give and take of our karmic bonds and attachments, as well as the relinquishment of various attachments. This house is about death. In that sense, it is about the relinquishment of attachments on a metaphorical level, not just literal death, but the death of bonds and entanglements and attachments, the fruiting of those attachments in terms of what they give and what they take. So karmic bonds and contracts, let's call that house, as well as attachments and relinquishment of attachments. For Virgos, we're talking about the house of love, intimacy, relationships. We're talking about the give and take of interpersonal dynamics and also emotional intimacy. So a place that's also about happiness relationally. Sometimes you can think of the seventh also as containing elements of the unconscious side of our own personality that can only be seen or understood through intimate relationships with others. For Librans, we're talking about the sixth house, a place of sacrifice and service, work and effort, labor and toil, sickness and misfortune at times, but also the qualities of sacrifice, service, and humility that are required to accomplish things, to work hard, to be acknowledging and honoring of our duties and obligations and responsibilities to something bigger than ourselves. So a house of tremendous sacrifice and work that often pays off slowly and over time, especially when Saturn's visiting. For Scorpios, is the fifth house, a place of creativity, a place that connects us to other people, and things like love and happiness and creative fulfillment resides in this house. Place of children and pregnancy as well, as a relationship with our children, childlike qualities, joy, and how our emotional creative life connects with other people. For Sagittarians, we're talking about home, family. We're talking about the home and hearth. We're talking about property and the living environment, ancestors and family karma. And for Capricorns, we're talking about the third house, a place of our mind, our emotions, a place of learning, sometimes siblings, the psychic, emotional environment, and sometimes literal environment, neighborhood, village, culture. And we're sort of talking about the environment of the mind and psychology as well. Impulses, desires, and how we shape or refine our desires through effort, practice, skill development, often also associated with the third house, especially in Indian astrology. With the second house, we're talking about things like time, money, energy, and resources, the give and take of what we have, what we spend, what we earn. We're talking also about any kind of asset or resource life in our lives, as well as the assets and resource and asset management. And then finally, with Pisces in Saturn in the first house, we're talking about identity. We're talking about authenticity and personal growth and evolution, psychology, character, body, health, anything that is core to one's sense of identity, health, body, and the evolution of those things come with Saturn in the first house. So those are just some brief house reminders, because what we want to do is we want to take a period like this. Okay, Saturn's back in Pisces now from September of 2025 to February of 2026. And we want to be meditating on the themes that we look at today in relation to these topics. The other thing is we want to remember that we already have had a nice long exploration of these topics that took place between March and May of 2025. So keep all of that in mind. Use these timelines alongside of the themes and topics to really dive deeply with this. All right, what I want to give you now are 5 things to watch for. These are all archetypal things that are going to come with the general territory of Saturn and Pisces. Number 1, Saturn is a planet of tremendous melancholy. It was the planet originally associated with the melancholic temperament, and the melancholic temperament itself was often the temperament associated with great creative minds, artistic and even technological innovators, recluses, monastic types, people who loved solitude, people who maybe didn't fit into the world entirely, the aching hearts of poets, the aching hearts of mystics, the yearning for something beyond this world, the feeling that this world is terribly boring and limited, the desire to hide away in libraries filled with ideas, or to be captured in artistic fugue states. These were all associated with the melancholic temperament. Saturn in Pisces is therefore one of the most romantic, angsty, yearning, and kind of melancholic placements for Saturn through the zodiac. This is the exaltation of Venus. This is the sign of Jupiter, 2 planets in a double-bodied feminine water sign that just yearn for the return of spring. This sign ushers us into the light half of the year and is really about the redemption of light returning from darkness in the solar year. Yet Saturn carries a real heaviness around these themes. And so the quality of romantic yearning that comes with pain and ache and a kind of restrictiveness is really profound. Saturn in Pisces presents us emotionally, psychologically with strong, aching, weighty yearnings for something more, for something transcendent, for something beyond the veil. So notice Saturn coming back into Pisces, potentially amplifying just the ache or the yearn for something more within a given area of life, or for something beyond this world. And as well as the heaviness that may come with it, it might be part of generating that ache for something more. So keep all of that in mind as a general Saturn and Pisces themes. The ache or yearn for transcendence is particularly strong with melancholic Saturn in this super romantic sign of Pisces. Number 2 would be feelings of futility. I'm thinking a lot in today's talk about the recent exploration of the astrology of Shawshank Redemption that I did as a weekend bonus episode. Morgan Freeman's character, Morgan Freeman played this interesting character in that movie who really struggled with seeing that there was any real benefit to hoping for something more than prison life. He's opposite the character Andy Dufresne. And Andy Dufresne says, you have to have some hope inside of you. And Morgan Freeman's character was like, no, that's a pointless, futile exercise to try to hope or yearn or long for something more. Not surprisingly, Morgan Freeman was born with Saturn in Pisces. Also interesting to note that he was born with the moon in Pisces, moon in Pisces. And not surprisingly, when Saturn was going over that moon in the year that it was released, he was also passed up for an Oscar for his performance. So, it's like there's some bittersweet qualities involved with the release of that film in his life. Although it was one of his greatest performances, it was maybe one of the times where he was most overlooked. Anyway, the point is that Saturn in Pisces can be about saying, where Venus and Jupiter in this sign tend to be so aspirational, so hopeful. They present with buoyant feelings of optimistic, romantic desire and longing and compassion and so forth. Saturn in this sign can sometimes say all of those things are futile and unrealistic. All of those things are a waste of time. So sometimes we have to deal with the voice of Saturn in Pisces, let's say, in a certain domain of our charts, given the topical areas of the house, saying, yeah, let's not get our hopes up here. Let's not get too excited. All of this is a pointless exercise. Nothing is worth getting hopeful about here. So the feelings of futility and the feelings of limitation, kind of a dampening spirit that Saturn in Pisces may provide us with, knowing that that's there, that if we start to see it, feel it, notice it, maybe we can engage with that a little bit more consciously, take that into the chamber of our hearts and sit with it. Because I'm not saying that everything is hopeless or everything is futile, but you could certainly encounter the feeling with Saturn in Pisces that, hope is a waste of time, So keep that in mind. Remember, in the film Shawshank Redemption, that's something that Red's character has to overcome. And the Saturn in Pisces sometimes provides us with a sense of meaninglessness, or this is a waste, or this is futile. But that's the limit or the block that we have to sometimes overcome, the prison wall we have to escape from. Number 3 would be a necessary surrender. So necessity is a very Saturnian word. It's an unavoidable, inescapable truth, or it's a brick wall that you can't deny somehow. That word necessity is so Saturnian, just like in Saturn demarcates the limits and barriers of this material world and its separation from the spiritual realm of eternality. Saturn demarcates the boundary of time and space, and here's the world, and there's this other world that exists beyond it. But unfortunately, you're here in a body, in a time-bound experience, and you can't escape that. It's inevitable. It's necessary somehow. So that those Saturnian words can feel really a little bit heavier and achier in the sign of Pisces, a sign that is literally about kind of the last vestiges of winter and darkness being released as we transcend and move into the light. Sometimes there is this moment of surrender when you run up against the necessities, the limits, the barriers, the boundaries of the world, that the only way of overcoming them is somehow surrendering to them. Stop trying to fight them, stop trying to escape, and surrender. I'm thinking again of Shawshank Redemption and the fact that after Andy Dufresne has gotten out of the prison, spoiler alert, sorry, I am assuming everyone's seen the movie by now. It's been around forever. Anyway, Red's up for parole again. And he goes, have you been rehabilitated? And he goes, rehabilitation? He's like, I don't even know what that is. And he goes, oh, well, it means that you feel you've become a better. And he goes, I know what you think it means, but I think it's just a bullshit word made up by politicians. And he goes on to say, I don't give a shit. I've surrendered to my situation, and I've gone so far beyond guilt, so far beyond questions of rehabilitation. I'm just an old man living in a prison at this point. And so I surrender. I don't care about your parole board. I don't care about any of it. I don't think any of it's real or fair, or, he sort of just completely surrenders to the situation. And after multiple scenes in which the same parole setting has happened and they've stamped, rejected, and he's sitting there in prison again, for some reason at this moment, although he's surrendered completely to the unfair, punitive, shitty situation of being in prison as long as he has, they stamp it accepted and he's released. There's something very paradoxical about Saturn and Pisces where if you surrender deeply to something that's necessary, overwhelming, feels sort of defeating and stifling, but you somehow just give up, magically some opening appears. And I've noticed it enough with clients and myself, Saturn and Pisces, it's a thing. So think about what is the necessary point of surrender right now. Number 4, individual versus collective tensions. Saturn in Pisces, a Jupiter-ruled sign, a water sign, a Venusian sign, often points us toward things that unify, things that inspire, things that uplift, things that connect. Compassion, empathy, sensitivity, emotion, sweetness, love, romance, devotion, all qualities of Pisces. When Saturn's in Pisces, there can be a way of feeling like we are isolated, disconnected, stuck, and separated somehow, fairly, unfairly, existentially, from some greater form of connection or unity. I feel alone. I feel apart. I feel isolated. I feel lonely. I feel cut off. This is Saturn presenting its meaning in a sign that has so much fundamentally to do with interconnection. Venus Pisces sign, Jupiter sign in Pisces. And so the individual can feel stuck or remote or isolated or alone or cut off. On the other hand, Saturn in Pisces can present as the unwillingness that appears within us to get lost or consumed by collectivity, by popular sentiment, by popular emotions, by trends, by things that appear on one level like, well, this is what everyone's doing or thinking, or this is how everyone's connected through things like culture, things that are popular or appealing. And Saturn in Pisces can have this very interesting way of saying, no, I am not going to succumb. I'm not going to lose myself in, the zeitgeist. And it's interesting because Pisces is a sign that can often, Liz Green wrote about this extensively in her book on Neptune, talking about connection between Neptune and Pisces now, but in that, from that modern perspective. But nonetheless, the sign and both the sign Pisces and the planet Neptune can speak to collective emotional realities. And Saturn in Pisces can have us resisting that, either in a good way or maybe a not so good way. So think about those tensions as they may appear within a certain sphere of your life. And then finally, facing final limitations. For me, this is like the process of Saturn going through a sign over several years in our charts is often about bringing us to the threshold or boundary or limit of something. So in your career, this is how far I can go with being this way in my career, doing this thing, or being seen in this way, or existing within this industry or this type of career. And it brings you to the place where you just go, that's it, that's the end, that's the limit. Or let's say it's in the 9th house. This is as far as this paradigm or this belief can carry me. It's now dead, or it's reaching its limitation of what, what good it can do for me, or what role it serves, or what purpose it carries in my life. So interestingly, when Saturn reaches the end of a long transit, sometimes the final fruit of that transit is reaching a very important limit that has transformative power, because you've just reached the end of something. This is as far as it can go, this and no further. So if you think about Saturn over the next 6 months as giving you some summation of the limits of something. Well, for example, if it's in your 11th house, how far can this type of social connection bring me? These types of colleagues, these types of friends, this connection to social life in general has run its course. This is as far as I can go. On the other hand, if there have been limits that have been progressively enlightening us, we could reach the end of a feeling of limitation. So let's use the 11th house again. On the one hand, it wouldn't be surprising as Saturn in the next 6 months finishes up in Pisces, if you have it in your 11th house, I'm thinking of my own Taurus rising chart, to be like, well, I just reached the end of what types of social connections, groups, communities are going to work for me, and what won't. And I'm reaching some very clearly demarcated boundaries and limits with respect to social life. Okay. That's informative. I'm going to move forward in a new direction because I've finally reached a very clear point of understanding. On the other hand, flip it the other direction and you think to yourself, how can I, if there have been progressively over several years feelings of, oh gosh, I don't have any community, or I don't have the right social circles, or I don't have any professional networks or colleagues that feel really aligned, and that's been a real limiting factor. Well, you might paradoxically find that that feeling of limitation is reaching its end, its natural limit. This also wouldn't be surprising given the North Node in Pisces right now, that over the next 6 months, we're running up against some final moments of limitation or constraint with respect to the whole sign house of Pisces, only to see that area open up and blossom significantly beyond the space of Saturn in Pisces. So let's say, midwinter in the Northern Hemisphere here, 2026, Saturn moves into Aries. We have the conclusion of the North Node moving through Pisces. Maybe the remainder of 2026, we're finding that that area of life opens significantly because this period of Saturnian limitation in that whole sign house of Pisces has finally reached its conclusion, and the North Node brings in some newness in its wake, right? That would be exciting for, I think about that for me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. So anyway, some different ways of thinking about it, but facing final limitations with Saturn and Pisces between now and February. Maybe that looks a little different from person to person. Maybe if limitations are also being removed, we could think about it that way. Okay, well, that is it for today. What I want to do now is show you what's on my altar and do some horoscopes for the double-bodied rising signs. So just remember that if you are this week coming out of the eclipse in Pisces and Saturn back in Pisces, if you're Gemini rising, this is your career house. A lot of focus on the career house. That's a very powerful place for these transits. If you're a Gemini rising, you're getting it real strong. And then going to Virgo, the relationship house, intimacy, love, marriage, interpersonal dynamics, happiness and pleasure in relationships, very strong placement for the double-bodied signs all this week, very strong. The eclipse in Pisces was in your 4th house if you're a Sag rising. That's home, family, living situation, things like property, ancestral karma, parenting, home and family as a space of karmic exploration, the constellations of family karma. Saturn back in there now, also emphasizing that along with the eclipse. And then finally, if you're a Pisces rising, this is really very personal, potentially even physical with respect to health, appearance, body, self-image, self-concept, development or evolution of character and psychology, clarifying who you are. Maybe some final period here of a little weightiness around identity, health, body with Saturn back in Pisces for 6 months. But the North Node there, to me, especially for Pisces risings, suggests that there's a lot of growth coming. One last little chapter here of maybe some work to do. So those are just, at the beginning of the week, whoever's getting the angular transits that are most that are loudest for the week ahead. I just briefly cover those. And then I'm going to shift my, oops, I'm going to tell you what's on my altar now. If I can get my camera. Oh, here we go. Here's my camera. All right. There we go. So as I'm recording this, I'm just days after there was a terrible shooting here at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, not less than 10 minutes from where I drop my girls off at school in the mornings with my wife. My daughter made me this mermaid tail at school. So I put it on my altar as a way of remembering and praying for the sweetness, the innocence of children and what they give to us, and the need to protect them. To me, as someone who, I grew up with people who hunted and fished in my families, and I respect, their interest in sports and hunting and all that stuff. But I'll just be honest. I don't even think it's a political issue. I think common sense gun laws are common sense. I don't even think it's political. I really don't. But aside from that little interjection of my personal feeling on the matter, this week on my altar, I'm just trying to stay connected to the community of children here, the communities of families and parents. We are like 2 degrees of separation from someone who lost their daughter to that school shooting. We are friends with someone whose coworker was parent of one of the children who died. And so this week I am praying for sanity and peace, for common sense improvements to the way we do things. And I'm just thinking of my kids. Sorry, I'm like trying not to cry. I'll just tell you guys, it hit really close to home. I've seen these things happening, of course, for many, many years in our country, but I've never had it hit so close to home where, I'm dropping my daughter off for her very first day of school in the first grade, and on the news, by the time I'm home, less than 10 minutes away, there's kids dead. And it really scared me. And yeah, like I said, I've never been close to someone who actually lost someone. I could, my mind just couldn't go there last week. I would try to imagine, how would I feel if this were, and my brain would just shut off. So anyway, I am not, I don't want to say more than I have, other than what's on my altar this week is just praying for the families and the kids in my community really close to me that lost people, who are now living with a very serious level of trauma. I know pain and suffering exist all around the world every day. It's a little different when it's like right next door to you. It's easy to like, oh, that's in some other place of the world, or that's, you have a little bit more distance from it. But there's grown men at the gym in the locker room crying together because people know people who know people, and they're all real close, and that was my reality just a couple days ago. So anyway, sorry, I don't mean to carry on and get so emotional. Just doing my best to pray for the people around me this week, and also hopefully, do as much as I can. I've made some donations to. We've made a donation to a group of mothers who support common sense gun laws. That's just something for me. I don't mean to preach about what anyone else should do, but that's where I've been at. So anyway, that's it. I hope you guys are having a good one. And whatever you do with your altar, just find a meaningful way of connecting. Mine's a little heavy this week, a little heavy-hearted, but it's an altar practice is meant to keep that sacred connection even in difficult times. Like, that's what it's there for, So I hope that you'll find a meaningful way of exploring, if you haven't already, it's a great way to deepen your connection to astrology as well. All right, I'm going to sign off now. And as I do, there's an informational video about our retreat to Mexico. I hope to see some of you there. I think it's going to be awesome. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm really excited to tell you more about the Oracle Within, the retreat that we'll be hosting in Mexico in June of 2026. So this is a little informational video that I've made to answer all the questions that you might have about the retreat. In this video, I'm going to start by telling you more about what you will learn on the retreat, what the focus of our studies will be, and then I'm going to tell you about our daily format and sort of what day-to-day life will look like at this retreat center outside of the actual material we'll be studying. I'm going to then tell you who this retreat is ideal for, what kind of background you may want to have before coming along. And then finally, I'm going to tell you more about how you can register. And of course, I'll take you over to the actual retreat website page so that you know where all of the information is located. There's also a really rich FAQ section that will probably answer any further questions you may have. On that note, let's start with what will I learn? So for a very long time, astrologers have talked about what astrology is. What is this? Is it some kind of karmic science? Is it a science of causal energies and influences? Is this actually scientific? Like, what order of knowing is astrology? If we say we can know something about reality, then how can we actually say that when it comes to astrology? These may seem like really deep, dense philosophical issues, but actually they're at the heart of what it means to really deepen into astrology. To have an understanding of what this actually is so fundamental and so helpful. Throughout all of the programs that I teach at Nightlight, I, of course, talk at length about my belief that astrology is a form of divination, that this is a language of signs and omens, very much like the tarot or the I Ching or many other systems of symbolic divination from all around the planet. We're going to spend a lot of time on this retreat talking about what astrology is. From a historical and philosophical perspective, what is divination? What is divination, not just in this tradition, but all over the planet? What kind of things does a divinatory view of the cosmos assume about the nature of reality, about the nature of the soul, and what we're actually doing as practitioners when we practice astrology or when we study it or when we use it for ourselves? So one of the teachers that I had that made a huge impact on me, and 12 years ago when Jupiter was last in Cancer, I hosted him for a retreat on astrology as a form of divination, is Jeffrey Cornelius. He wrote this book called The Moment of Astrology, Origins in Divination, which is, in my opinion, one of the best books on astrology ever written. This will be something like a preparatory textbook that a lot of students on the retreat I'll recommend read before you come to this course. Over the program for the course of a full week, in the mornings, we're going to be talking about the history, the metaphysics, the philosophy, the ancient mystics, and what they said about the nature of astrology itself. So we're going to think really deeply about what is astrology. Then in the afternoons, we're going to talk about how to connect with an oracle. Connecting with an oracle, connecting with astrology as a divinatory system, in other words, is about the marriage of intuition and being able to listen to the oracle speak while also utilizing the logic of craft. How do you marry those two things together? It's not something we take a lot of deliberate time to talk about as astrologers. So in the mornings, we're talking about history, philosophy, theory of astrology. In the afternoons, we're going to be talking about how to actually develop a living, vibrant relationship with an oracle so that it's informing how you approach the craft of a reading or how you approach the craft of astrology itself, if it's something that you maybe just use only for you in your own spiritual path. Either way, practitioners, hobby students are all welcome. So a lot of hands-on immersive work with charts, with live clients, with different systems of divination, and talking a lot about how to connect with an oracle experientially in our afternoons, where our mornings will be devoted to theory. It's about 30 to 40 hours worth of content that we'll be doing over the course of a week together, which means this is effectively like one of my advanced training programs condensed into a week. It's brand new material, brand new curriculum, doesn't appear anywhere else in the Nightlight programs, and yet everything that this program includes is really a condensation of the underlying philosophy of astrology itself that is a part of all of the Nightlight programs and all of my work as a whole. And again, most of that was deeply inspired by the work of Jeffrey Cornelius, who's I consider him something of a mentor in my life. So that's a bit about what you will learn. If you have questions about what you will learn, you can feel free to email me for more details, info@nightlightastrology.com. Now, I want to talk about the format of the retreat. When you're on this retreat, first of all, you're in a beautiful sort of jungle beach location near Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for a week, which means we every day will not just be about theory and experiential, immersive, oracular work, which I'm very excited about. I have a ton of really good curriculum written for us as a group to go through. But in the mornings, we're going to have the option of starting your morning with breath work, yoga, meditation. In the evenings, we'll probably cap our days off with a little bit of centering as well. So my wife, Ashley, who I ran a yoga studio with for a decade, will be with me leading daily meditation and yoga. She is an incredibly good yoga teacher, very grounded and very, wherever your level is at, there'll be something there for you. And that's optional as well. So every day you have a little meditation and yoga. There's healthy food that serves people if you're vegan, vegetarian, or eat meat or whatever. There's options for food. There's a beach, there's a pool, there's some jungle hikes available. So our days will be broken into periods of free time, periods of rest, and periods of focused learning with things like meditation and yoga as options that are there for everyone. We'll also have some other meaningful group exercises that we'll do that will be, again, about how do you connect with an oracle? How do you make a conversation with the oracle a daily part of your life? So that's something of the format that you can look forward to in this beautiful kind of oceanside retreat setting. More information on the website. I'll show you that in a second. Who is this for? Ideally, you are someone who has a background in traditional Hellenistic astrology already. Wherever that comes from, if it's my courses or not, I want people coming to this retreat to have some pretty good solid background in Hellenistic astrology already. Or if you're from within our programs, then as long as you are enrolled in the year one program, you don't have to have finished it. You just need to be at least enrolled in it. Then you would be more than welcome. Any alumni from any of our programs would be welcome. And again, people who have some serious background in traditional astrology already, just because I don't want people to come along with maybe a modern background, but zero understanding of Hellenistic. So that would be who I would recommend this for. Spaces are limited and we anticipate the retreat will fill up rather quickly. So I really recommend registering as soon as you can. You also have the early bird rates to help you save. Finally, how do I register? I'm going to take you over to the website and you will find that here, the website, you can find it under the events page. Go to Immersive Retreat, or under the courses, it's our new course called The Oracle Within. When you scroll down, you're going to see everything that the program includes, basically everything I've gone over, maybe a little bit more details and depth there, as well as a little personal note for me that I wrote about why this means so much to me. You'll learn more about Marta Jade, which is the beautiful retreat center. You can check it out. You're going to book through us. So you don't book through the retreat center, you book through us, and then we take care of it. At the bottom, you're going to find registration options that will be available starting on August 11th. That's today. Right now, as I'm looking at this, we don't have the prices listed yet. It's still kind of under construction. But at the bottom, you'll find different available options for registering. The different options will include different room options, and there's different. So if you want a private room versus maybe sharing a room with someone we'll assign you with that's part of the group, or maybe even a small group dorm room where there's like 5 people are sharing a room and you're comfortable being with other students on the trip, stuff like that. So there'll be some options there for everyone. There's an early bird rate that'll be in effect until October, saves you a little bit of money off the cost. And then also all of the different room options that are available at different price tiers depending on and they go first come first serve in terms of, like, so there's some ocean view rooms. The people who book first will get the best. We just go best available first and just run it like that. So anyway, again, as you are looking over anything on the page, you have any questions, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. I hope that this has been helpful. I can't wait to have finally an immersive in-person training program in a beautiful location. It's nice to do things online, but I really love having in-person time available. And I know that you're going to also really enjoy working with Ashley. During the evenings throughout the week, Ashley will also have some little workshops that she'll be offering as options for people that are part of your retreat package that will be on plant spirit medicine topics and how to use different plant teachers to work with different astrological signatures in the chart. You got a difficult Mars, work with this plant. You got a challenged Venus, try this plant. So there's going to be some really fun little add-ons around plant spirit medicine that Ashley, if you know her on my channel, she talks about plants often, will also lead. So anyway, that's it. That's your informational video. I hope that this was useful. Hope to see some of you on the retreat in Mexico next year. Take it easy, everyone.